who seemed to understand him better than his own countrymen. President Franklin D. Roosevelt expressed it in a telegram to Churchill during the Second World War, "It is fun being in the same decade as you." Churchill was proud of his American ancestry. During a discussion at the Truman White House in 1952 to standardize the type of rifle to be used by the two countries' armies, the following exchange took place between Churchill and the senior British officer present. Field Marshal Slim: "Well, I suppose we could experiment with a bastard rifle, partly American, partly British." Churchill: "Kindly moderate your language, Field Marshal. It may be recalled that I am myself partly British, partly American." In 2 world wars, in both of which Britain's future was endangered, Churchill's was the chief British voice urging and attaining the closest possible cooperation with the United States. After the United States had entered the First World War, Churchill told the British War Cabinet that the intermingling of British and American units on the field of battle and their endurance of losses and suffering together may exert an immeasurable effect upon the future destiny of the English-speaking peoples. As Minister of Munitions, he worked to ensure that the two armies would be well mingled and well supplied. Speaking on the 4th of July 1918 to a large Anglo-American gathering in London, Churchill, having just returned from the Western Front, declared, "When I have seen, during the past few weeks, the splendor of American manhood striding forward on all the roads of France and Flanders, I have experienced emotions which words cannot describe." The only recompense Britain sought from American participation in the First World War was the supreme reconciliation of Britain and the United States. If the two armies and the two nations worked well together to secure victory in 1918, Britain and the United States may act permanently together. Such sentiments were not shared by all Churchill's fellow countrymen. Throughout his life, one of Churchill's battles was against the sometimes latent, sometimes strong anti-Americanism that could be found throughout British society. He was always urging his friends, his colleagues, and, as Prime Minister, his War Cabinet not to alienate the United States, whatever vexations American policy might be causing. In 1944, as victory came closer, Churchill saw a bolder and brighter future for the Anglo-American relationship than victory alone. In a speech in London at the Royal Albert Hall on the 23rd of November 1944, in celebration of American Thanksgiving Day, he spoke of how, "In 3 or 4 years, the United States has, in sober fact, become the greatest military, naval, and air power in the world. That, I say to you in this time of war, is itself a subject for profound thanksgiving." But he also spoke of a greater Thanksgiving Day, which still shines ahead, which beckons the bold and loyal and warm-hearted. That future Thanksgiving Day would be when this union of action, which has been forced upon us by our common hatred of tyranny, which we have maintained during these dark and fearful days, shall become a lasting union of sympathy and good feeling and loyalty and hope between all the British and American peoples, wherever they may dwell. Then, indeed, Churchill declared, there will be a day of thanksgiving, and one in which all the world will share. During the Second World War it is doubtful whether Britain could have sustained itself against the Nazi onslaught, or maintained itself at war, without Churchill's almost daily efforts to win the United States to the British and Allied cause. First as a benign neutral, providing vast amounts of war material, and then as an ally willing to put the defeat of Germany before that of Japan. When the Cold War began with the Soviet Union, Churchill told his Foreign Secretary, Anthony Eden, "The similarity and unity which we have with the United States will grow, and it is indispensable to our safety." To ensure that unity and safety, Churchill worked closely for the next decade with Presidents Harry S. Truman and Dwight D. Eisenhower. Truman and Eisenhower were important in Churchill's efforts to forge a common Anglo-American policy and theme, but no world leaders had such a long, constructive, intimate, frustrating, disputatious, and affectionate relationship as Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt. Churchill said of the President, whom he met so many times and corresponded with so frequently over a period of 5 years, "I have wooed President Roosevelt as a man might woo a maid." There were many quarrels, but as Churchill once telegraphed to Roosevelt using one of his favorite Latin quotations, "Amantium ire amoris integratio est." When one of Churchill's secretaries said she did not know what this meant, Churchill told her, "It means the wrath of lovers hots up their love." Roosevelt's staff translated the quotation for him somewhat more prosaically, and more accurately as, "Lovers' quarrels always go with true love." These pages tell the story of Churchill's lifelong true love of the United States. It was a love affair that began with his first visit to New York in 1895, and was still in evidence during his final visit in 1961. At the beginning of 1942, Churchill told King George VI that Britain and the United States were now married after many months of walking out. As with all close and sustained relationships, it was replete with ups and downs, uncertainties and disagreements, even anger, but its high points were sustained and remarkable and of deep benefit to both nations. Churchill's determination to maintain, repair, strengthen and make full use of the ties between the two countries is unique in the annals of Anglo-American relations. Martin Gilbert, Merton College, Oxford, 18th of May, 2005. Chapter 1. From Blenheim Palace to Buffalo Bill. In 1963, in a message sent when he was 88 years old, Churchill remarked with pride to President John F. Kennedy that the story of his association with the United States went back nearly 90 years, to the day of my father's marriage. That marriage took place in Paris on the 15th of April, 1874. The bridegroom, Lord Randolph Spencer Churchill, was the son of a British duke. The bride, Jennie Jerome, was the daughter of an American millionaire, although at that precise moment Leonard Jerome's fortune had taken a temporary dip. At the time of their marriage, Jennie was 20 years old and Lord Randolph 25. Their courtship had been short, their love intense, their determination to marry stronger than the doubts of either set of parents. The American ancestry of Jennie Jerome did not impress the aristocratic Churchills, but it was impressive nevertheless. The first member of her family to settle in America was an Englishman, Timothy Jerome, who reached America from the Isle of Wight in 1710, a descendant of Huguenot Protestants who had fled France for Britain 3 generations earlier. One of Winston Churchill's great-great-grandfathers, Lieutenant Reuben Murray, had served during the American Revolutionary War in the 17th Connecticut Regiment and the 7th Albany Regiment, New York Militia. Because of this, during a visit to Washington in 1952, Churchill was invested with the Eagle and Diploma of the Society of Cincinnatus, which is limited to direct male descendants of officers who served 3 years in the Army and Navy during that war. 2 of Churchill's American great-great-great-grandfathers had also fought in the American Revolution. Samuel Jerome was a militia sergeant. Major Libius Ball had been wounded in action. Major Ball's father, a clergyman, was a cousin of George Washington's mother. Thus Churchill and Washington had a common ancestor. A scrutiny of genealogical tables also reveals that Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt, the president with whom he was to become inextricably involved in the Second World War, were also related, albeit distantly, as 8th cousins once removed. In 1849, Leonard Jerome married Clara, the daughter of Ambrose Hall and Anna Baker. They had 3 daughters, Clarita, Jennie, and Leonie. A 4th daughter died at the age of 6. Jennie's maternal grandfather, Ambrose Hall, was a respected member of the New York State Assembly. A mystery surrounds the identity of Jennie's grandmother's mother, whose maiden name is not recorded in the Hall genealogies. According to family law, she was believed to have been an Iroquois Indian. She came, in fact, from Nova Scotia, where there were no Iroquois, but several Indian tribes lived there, principally the Micmac and Abenaki. Although marriage between Indians and whites was then extremely rare, rape was not. Churchill's great-great-great-grandmother could well have been a half-caste. Within the